Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and we are back. Tuesday night fans forum. It seems like forever since we've done a fans forum, but we also thought we'd bring a special guest onto the show. So not only have we got the main man, Martin, we've also got Dan, aka at the Villa Home or Home of the Villa on X, legendary X account. How are you doing, Dan? Great to see you, mate.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Could have been better if we'd had a held on for 10 minutes at the end on Saturday. But yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
Exactly. I know. And yeah, we've got. I thought we'd get back into kind of discussing transfers, assessing our summer signings because I think we had so much optimism with the squad and how well these players would do. And I think some you could say has been a bit mixed, some's a little bit frustrating. So we're going to get into all of that. We're going to talk potential reinforcements in January where we need them. Could we see recall for one or two of our on loan players? And then your questions, your comments, also discussing our Christmas fixtures. Where do we see our points coming from? Because it is a tough 3 games to come. So, yeah, keep your comments coming in. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. We are almost at 5,000 subscribers. I think we are we're definitely less than 150 away. So we're getting close to that 4,900 mark. So you guys can help us get there. Like, subscribe, and keep your comments flowing. Ghosting in at the far post as well. Kev, how you doing, mate?
Literally ghosting in because I've just played football and then made a call that I haven't got time to have a shower. So here I am, all sweaty, but luckily via the medium of podcast, you can only see me and hear me rather than smell me. So we'll move on.
Good job. Right, Martin, we'll start with you. You've prepped all the pictures. So let's talk our summer signings because I guess we came into the season knowing that we had to do a bit of negotiation, a bit of jiggery pokery with the squad, getting rid of Douglas Luiz, bringing one or two in. And, I think we were very, very excited with some of the business that we'd done. Let's start, I say, with the most expensive one, Amadou Onana. I mean, absolutely started with a bang at the start of this season. We can see the potential that he's got. How do you think he would? How do you assess his sort of start to Aston Villa, and how do you think he would assess it?
I think if you went off the first 7 or 8 games, I would put Onana as a 10 out of 10, scoring goals, being defensively solid, having a great midfield presence with his height and his strength. After that, you would probably say frustration just with his injury record at the moment, not being fit enough at this minute. And I think it's really shown our midfield that we're missing him. So I think it's early doors to probably give him a fair assessment or a harsh assessment, whatever way you want to call it, because of his injuries. But if you're going, like I said, if you're going off the first 10 games, I just think that he was exceptional. Like the first 4 minutes against West Ham, a towering header from a corner, which is something we were calling out for, and just making differences in midfield in certain games. And I remember my first game I went to watch him, it was against Everton, and he was just miles above probably the rest of everyone, apart from Tielemans, I would say, in that midfield. And it goes to show that we've missed him. I know we've obviously have Kamara back, and he's obviously made a huge difference. So I felt that in the Forest game just recently with him and Kamara next to each other, I just felt that they looked really solid. And I thought it was a bit of a harsh decision to probably take Kamara off because I felt that midfield was working, it was looking solid. So maybe that's the plan going forward. So I think it's too early to call for him because of the injuries that he's had, but I would say that he can hold his head held high because he has put in some massive performances.
Yeah, Dan, I'll bring you in. I mean, I guess that's the frustration, isn't it, with Onana? We've seen how good he could be at the start, or has been at the start of the season. The impact that he was having, he scored 2 goals in the Premier League in the first 3 games, scored in the Champions League, and we thought, here we are, we're going to have a 10-goal a season midfielder here. And then it's kind of been disrupted a bit with the injuries and been taken off at half time a few times from Unai Emery. It's almost like a watch this space with with Onana, isn't it, to see if he can really nail down that midfield spot?
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult position for him to come into, because obviously, well, I don't think he is a like-for-like replacement for Douglas Luiz, but where he's going into, Luiz was such a massive player for us and was so good last season that people think, right, 52, 55 million, whatever we paid for him, he's going to come in, he's going to slot straight in, he's going to fill the gap that Luiz left. And yeah, as Mark said, he's started really well, really well. And you think, Christ, we've not only got a replacement, we've got a goal scorer, a threat in midfield. And yeah, I think it was it the first or second international break he pulled out or got injured and not really sort of got back to full fitness and back playing sort of full games. And then you have Kamara coming back in, and yeah, there's obviously a player there that Monchi and Emery have seen to bring him in, and obviously going forward, I think it's a good problem for Emery to have, because again, you've got the likes of could Tielemans play there, Kamara, Onana. We're in a nice position that we've got a lot of players there, but not enough positions on the pitch to field them all. So it's not the worst problem to have. But again, when you spend that much money on someone, you don't really want them sitting on the bench and coming on and playing 20 minutes. But yeah, I think that there is a player in there, absolutely, and some midfield steel in the centre of the park, as in height, that we actually haven't had in the centre of midfield for quite a long time. In previous years, we've had a good midfield, but any high balls in the midfield, unfortunately, we're not really going to win the ball. But yeah, I think a really good addition, but I think we've just got to be careful that not to compare him to a Luiz, because they are very different players.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kev, we were saying this at the start of the season, weren't we? Like, Onana was the godsend almost of a physical presence in midfield, height in midfield, winning headers from defensive set pieces, attacking set pieces, and it was almost dream world, when he scored the goal against West Ham. And I guess that there is that slight frustration I think that Everton fans had with him not being able to keep a run of consistent games, whether that be through injury or whether that be through, one or two sort of poor performances. So we're just hoping that the second half of the season he can really show what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I think a lot of us on this pod have been the same, really, in terms of just the excitement of having him and Kamara together in that team. It's like, it's like the Expendables, isn't it? Like getting all the best ones together to take on the world. And I look at that as a double pivot and think it could be absolutely exceptional. I mean, Kamara's got the ability to be the best in the league, I think. If he keeps his kind of trajectory going at the age he's at. I mean, you think the defensive midfielders often reach their peak in their sort of like mid to late 20s. He's still only 23 maybe, Kamara, something like that. So I think he's got a real upward curve still to go. And then alongside him, the power, the strength, the pace, the ability we've seen on the ball of obviously Onana. But it was at the start of the season also when I was saying that we were going to win the lot. In fact, I remember skipping away from that West Ham game, literally shouting, "We're going to win it all! We're going to win it all!" while I was running back to my car, because I just saw such a level of confidence from that performance away at West Ham. Now, West Ham have struggled this season, so maybe that wasn't all it was, but I just think we lost that bit of that mojo. But he was a big part of it, wasn't he? Because we were seeing what we hadn't seen since Mings was in the team. The amount of headers he won in that game as well, defensively, let alone offensively, with the goal after 3 or 4 minutes that we were still finishing our drinks and didn't see.
Yeah.
Idiots. First goal of the season, we missed it. That does remind me, by the way, I remember Danny Ings scored that overhead kick against Newcastle.
Yeah.
My lad must have only been about 5 at the time, 6, and he was looking at Martinez. Oh, there's Martinez. And I'm like, did you see the goal, son? No, he didn't see one of the best goals at Villa Park ever because he was gawping at the keeper. Brilliant. I think we've missed that steal in the team. And when you add to that Mings hasn't been in the team, I think that's why we've been a bit of a pushover at times and why we've sort of lost good positions.
Well, there's just before you, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but you talk about that steal. There's been a few times we've obviously had to adapt with losing Louise, and I'm sure we might get on to that. But there's been a few times where actually you miss that cynical Louise pulling someone's arm or pulling someone's shirt. I know when you last season you'd be watching going, why have you done that? But actually he'd pull someone back in the opposition's half, pick up a yellow card, and we'd be able to reset. But there's been a few times, maybe the Palace, one or two of the Palace goals from a few weeks ago, where you'd think at the time, don't do that. But actually we miss that sort of bit of grittiness in midfield or somewhere to say just take a cynical yellow card, which is what the Man Cities have done for however many years and whatever, and seem to get away with it. Just being a bit nasty in midfield, or not nasty. Nasty is the wrong word, but cynical. Just don't be afraid of picking up a booking.
Yeah, it's a bit of shithousery, bit of old man play. Yeah, me and Martin were saying exactly this on Sunday after the match on our match reaction. I was like, how did we not manage that game on Saturday to break up Nottingham Forest rhythm, put a few bad challenges in, put a few cynical tackles in, kick the ball away? You know, when I used to be manager of Garforth Town, Unibond Premier, whatever, semi-pro, we used to get someone to kick a ball on the pitch when the other team was on the attack from like the other side of the fence. We'd have someone over the other like one of the supporters, or get one of the subs to walk around or something, and then just kick a ball on the pitch. But like, I'm not saying do anything like that, but you have to do something that is, or when you'd had to kick the ball on the pitch, you'd just roll it on, or you'd pretend to miss kick it or something. But you've just got to do something that interrupts the flow. And I just feel like, someone like Onana coming back into full fitness would do that. He loves a yellow card. He loves a booking.
I've got an idea.
Need that nastiness.
Here's a challenge to any Villa fans watching. Spread the word. Try and smuggle in footballs deflated into Villa Park. Little pumps under your seat. Keep an eye out for the stewards, and let's see when opposition teams attacking if you can throw a ball on the pitch and disrupt play. Could I get done for suggesting that? It's just clips.
Probably. Yeah.
I'm only joking. The Villa Park podcast does not endorse disruptive football matches. Can I just say? I just want to make that clear. Sorry.
But yeah, just a few comments. And Adam says Onana should have been a defender. I'm not sure about that. I don't know. Adam is evening, guys. Great to see Dan involved. Up the Beddy Lions. There you go, mate. You got a fan there for you, Dan. And Kevin said it's about time he started Maatsen. We'll talk about that in a second. Left wing. He also said Onana will prove his worth over the season. So yeah, I mean, just a quick. I guess we'll do a quick grade. I think we'll do it out of 10. Would you suggest 7 out of 10 at the moment for Onana, or do you think that's a bit too generous? Was that not generous enough?
I'd say 6.
6 for you?
I think 6 is a fair assessment in terms of it. You had a great start, but then obviously, and it wasn't his own fault, but obviously that just kind of dipped due to his injury. So to say 6 right now, I think is a fair assessment, because obviously he has done well, but obviously it's just been hampered with this little bit of an injury record. So he'll need to build up on that.
Yeah. Well, we had a comment about him maybe playing left wing. So let's talk about Ian Maatsen. Kev, I'll come to you first on Maatsen. I mean, came with so much promise after being in the Champions League final with Dortmund and playing so well. And we thought, right, he will be the left back. He will be the new generation of Aston Villa player. And up steps Luca Dean to have world-class performances. And I guess, again, a bit of a frustrating one for Ian Maatsen, because he haven't really seen the best of him. We've seen him in flashes. We've seen him play really well at certain points. But then I guess some starts he's had, he hasn't necessarily done himself justice, although it's difficult to come in, in fleeting moments. So, again, he'll want to be someone who has more of an impact this second half of the season, and we've got to all be patient as Villa fans. Or do you see him playing further forward?
Well, Unai hasn't fancied it yet, as he so far hasn't seemed to want to do that. And that has surprised me, because I think he seems to me like an ideal candidate to do that. He's, very, very offensive down that left-hand side. And that's what he brings to the team that Deeney doesn't, in terms of the ability to bomb on, get to the byline, get across in, chop back inside, whatever it might be. He's got that. So the fact we've been crying out for someone there is a surprise. It's an interesting one with Maatsen because I think all Villa fans can see we're crying out for an attacking right back who's got good quality, and yet we decided to just stockpile 3 attacking left backs and then sell one to Forest, and and not really, and then have to deal with either Bogard or Konza or Nedeljkovic at times at right back, or obviously Cash when he's been fit, and Cash obviously gets vilified sometimes unfairly, but sometimes fairly in terms of his maybe reluctance to get forward and to keep coming back on himself. So we could have done with that on the right-hand side of the pitch. We've got it on the left, but it also aligns with the time where Luca Digne has gone from being second fiddle to Alex Moreno when he came in, to securing that left-back berth for himself, and meaning that Moreno's had to leave the club, and you can't fault that. Digne's got back into the French team. He got goals, assists the other day, for France, obviously major international team. And I just think it's one of those situations where it happens. Look at Alvarez, right, at Man City. Didn't do much wrong, but had to leave because he wasn't getting past Haaland. And if you're not playing 2 left backs, you're just going to have to deal with it. I think his time will come. It wasn't just obviously Champions League final. He was named in the Champions League team of the season last year. That's the level of performances he was putting in. And I saw him as well as a player, watching him at, obviously, even coming through it, Burnley, Dortmund, what he did for Chelsea, Cov before that. And I just think he's a super player. I think he'll make a big difference to us. We just haven't seen anywhere near enough of him at the moment. So I think his time will come. But do you want me to grade him now, or are you going to wait for that?
We'll wait.
Okay.
We'll wait. Dan, what's your thoughts on Maatsen? I think he's got so much pace. I guess for me, what's been slightly disappointing is when he has had those starts, I haven't seen him make those marauding runs down the left-hand side and get to the byline and cut it back, which I thought was what he would do.
Yeah, I think Kev Kev's highlighted it sort of a few parts when obviously you hear that we're going to sign him from Chelsea for quite a substantial fee, and as you say, he was in the Champions League team this season. You're like, well, surely that again we're not going to spend that much money, and he's not going to play. But then Dean's just seemed to turn into prime Roberto Carlos over the last sort of 12 months, and just scoring for the national team, bombing forward. But I think the thing that maybe stands Dean above him is probably his defensive ability, which I know they always say sort of defense is the best form of attack, and at the moment we need as much assistance at defending. I don't say that because we are so porous, but we're nowhere near where we were last year, I think, in terms of how sure we were at the back. So I think there's clearly, again, a bit like an arm, there's clearly a player in there, but I think we've struggled to find, I was thinking about it earlier, we've struggled to find any consistency in the starting 11 at the whole season, whereas last year you could pretty much pick nine out of the 11 every week. There may be the sort of Bailey in for Diaby or vice versa, and maybe sort of Ramsey coming back. But this year we played Konza at right, we played Cash at right, we played Maatsen at left, we played Dean at left, we played Mings and Konza and Pau and Dia. That we're not really. I know every club will say we've had injuries, but we've not really had a settled squad at all to say, right, there's your back 4 or back 5 or whatever. And then we've been rotating midfielders. We've been trying to so I think that's no fault on anyone, like on Emery or anyone. It's just part and parcel of playing this many games. And I think Maatsen he's had to come in, like we've said with Onana, he's had to come in. He's had to try and fit in where he can. But as you said, I've not seen the Borussia Dortmund Maatsen that we saw last year, where he's sort of just caning the whole left-hand side and ruthless going forward. And to be fair, there have been a few times where he has got forward and he's proved quite a handful in that final third. But then, as we know, we've caught ourselves short where we've got a left back by the byline, two or three players in the box, and maybe Cash or someone, and we've got 5 players in their box. They break, and they break with 6, and we've got 3 or 4 back, and then you're like, so we go from really promising positions to looking all over the show. But then that goes into another discussion of like, well, if we'd had Aaron or Nana, that fills the gap. So yeah, anyway, you could go on for forever about different permutations, but I think he will come good, and I think there's a reason we paid that money for him. I don't think we paid that money for him at 20. I think it's 22, just to sort of sit on the bench for 3 years and then sell him. So yeah, I think he'll come through. I just think we need to get a bit of stability somewhere in the team for him to be able to fit in.
Yeah, no, I agree. Martin, before I come to you, Perkins said he thinks Maatsen has been unlucky and the fact Digne has really stepped up under Emery. He does think that Maatsen will force his way in eventually, though. Also mentions Dan, stop being a Scrooge and put your Christmas tree up. And Michael asks, I'll come to you on this one, Martin. Could Maatsen play right wing? It's normal to have a left foot at that side, and we need some pace. Like, could he play on that side and cut in? Lots of people talk about him playing further forward. What do you think on that?
Yeah, it could be an option because obviously with Bailey probably being out for a few weeks with a hamstring injury, so our wide areas is something that's a bit short at this moment. He has played right wing a couple of times for Dortmund, not in the Champions League obviously, but he has played a couple of times right wing in the Bundesliga because you can play in different positions. You can play left back, left wing, and right wing. So obviously he's naturally a wide player. So it's good to have someone like that you can play in different positions. And I think he's not just been unlucky by the fact of Digne. I think he's also been unlucky by the fact of Ramsey and, Bailey as well. And Philogene, because, and I know Philogene's probably a harsh one to mention on him because you have to remember he was primarily bought as a left back. So I don't think he's ever going to go right wing for Aston Villa. He'll probably be predominantly a left-sided player. So that's if we play 5 at the back, you'll see him left back, or left wing. So I think he's going to be predominantly a left-sided player for Aston Villa. Of course, it'd be nice if you could switch that up and probably put him in right wing for the game and see how it goes. But I think he's predominantly brought in to be a left-sided player. So I just don't think that's really realistically going to happen. But he has been unlucky as well with Digne playing out of his skin, because he admitted there in an interview, obviously, this week that he was so close to joining Nice and Unai Emery was convincing him to stay. And he only said he would stay if he got playing time, and he did. And then that obviously left Moreno on the bench. Now look at him. He's alone at Nottingham Forest. And Ian Maatsen has come in. And obviously with the huge transfer fee that he was at £37.5 million, you would think he's going to be the number one choice eventually at some point. But obviously, Digne is still putting in the class performances. But we also have to remember Digne is still 31. So, it could be this summer you might see him leave and Maatsen then gets his place, or it could be Digne probably won't have a playing time next season. So it's probably a plan of some players might take a year to get adjusted to the system, because you have to remember in Dortmund, their fullbacks were predominantly sitting deep. They weren't really overlapping a lot. So he was getting a lot of early crosses in. He wasn't overlapping the defenses to get the low balls in or cutbacks. He was always an early crosser. So maybe that has also been another thing for him, that Emery has played a different system altogether and he needs to get himself used to that. But I still think the performances that he's put in have actually shown to me that he's well capable of playing for Aston Villa and he's well capable of being our number one choice. So he hasn't shown anything to me to say that he's had a poor game, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd have just, like you say, he's maybe suffered a bit, and it's good because Digne's shown and Digne stepped up and done really well. I certainly think he probably thought he'd have more games at this time, and maybe 2 or 3 games in a row. Just like Dan says, some of the players haven't really had like the rhythm to say, right, here's a run of games that you're going to have 3 or 4 games. Get yourself into some form, get yourself into some rhythm. They've been right. You've got 1 game, you've got one opportunity, and I'm turning into Eminem in 8 Mile there. But yeah, you can, and it's not easy for players to do that. But like you said, next season or later on this season, he can certainly show his worth. So go on, Kev, give us a grade out of 10 for Maatsen, and we'll see if we agree.
Probably 5 out of 10. I think in terms of what he's been able to do. I mean, again, it started pretty well off the bench, didn't it? When he played a big part in the winning goal for Duran against West Ham, and we thought, here we are, we're seeing the difference here. But it's been fleeting in terms of the good stuff that he's done. I don't think that's necessarily down to him. I think it's been down to the opportunity. And I think one thing we'll say about Digne, what Digne's done, compared to a lot of other players in wide positions, is he's put good quality in. This might be for another podcast, but the quality of the final ball for many times this season has been absolutely atrocious. You know, when I saw Tottenham marauding through Southampton's defence 5 times at the weekend. Now, I know they've been up and down as well this season and had plenty of bad moments as well. But I can't remember many times when I've seen us have 3 or 4 on one and thought, we're definitely going to score here. It feels like the final ball or the final pass, or even when we get to the byline, it's either overhit, underhit. Sometimes I think that's a case of luck. Sometimes it deflects and falls to you, doesn't it? Because there was a game this season when I think we conceded a goal where I can't remember who it was. There was a deflection on the cross as it went in, and it meant that the other team scored. That was a game recently, wasn't it? I think we conceded a goal against where it took a nick off one of our players and went to maybe Chelsea. I think it was. It might be one of the Chelsea. Jackson's goal against Chelsea. The cross got blocked, took a nick, and it went straight into his path. So sometimes it is lucky, but I don't think it's unreasonable to say that the quality in the box hasn't been good enough. And yeah, I'll give him a 5 out of 10.
Yeah. Anyone else? Dan, Martin?
Yeah,
5 out of 10 so far.
Yeah, people might say that's being a bit unfair, but I don't think he's had enough game time to be able to say he's pushing a 7 or 8 or higher, and there's still more to come. So yeah, I'd probably have to agree with Kev. I may even push the boat out to a 5.5.
I'd say this one arguably our best signing of the summer. Ross Barkley, 5 million, or if you want to say that, nominal fee, but has certainly come in and made a massive impact and in numerous games in different ways, whether that be controlling the pace of the game, whether that be scoring a winner, whether that be, setting up goals, all of the different things that we've kind of needed this season. Yes, he's had 1 or 2 poor games when he's come on, but as a general rule, Dan, Ross Barkley's been a really, really solid signing.
Yeah, it was certainly an interesting one when he came in. Again, Emery's one of the first managers in a long time where you're like, if Emery wants a player, I'm going to trust that Emery knows what he's doing. Whereas previous managers, you're like, what the hell are we spending money on that person for? Where like, gone are the times now when Emery wants to make a substitution. Yeah, okay, some of them might be a bit like, oh, I wouldn't have done that, but actually, you got to trust what Emery and this sort of management team are doing with the signings that they're making. But yeah, when he did come in, I was a little bit surprised because again, was he the profile that a lot of Villa fans wanted? Probably not, because we were buying from a team that just got relegated. But he had a really good season last year. Again, I think there was a bit of not the tinge of what's going to happen, but obviously when he was on loan and the year when he was playing with Grealish, he was on fire with Grealish, and then I think he got substituted maybe against, I can't remember which game it was at Villa Park, the one where he sat on the advertising boardings. And the water bottle went. Yeah, something like that. And then it was then a lot of Villa fans a bit like, this bloke's got an attitude problem, get him, he doesn't want to be here. And then obviously he went and did, I think, Nice. Did he go back to Chelsea and then Nice? Anyway, he came back. So it was a bit like, what Ross Barkley are we going to get? But yeah, he's sort of come in and put in performances that I didn't maybe expect, where he sort of comes and takes the game by the scruff of the neck and go, right, okay, well, I'll pick the ball up, I'll drive forward. But he's actually got that control, maybe a bit more maturity now, a bit more of the control. And I think it was when he got injured and I think he missed the international break. I was speaking to a few other sort of mates and Villa fans, and I said, I didn't think I would have said this at the start of the season, but we've missed a Ross Barkley coming off the bench for sort of half hour. It was when he missed the sort of a few weeks before before the international break, and we didn't really have that energy off the bench of someone who was like, right, I'm going to win the ball, I'm going to go forward, I'm going to slow the pace of the game down. It's sort of I think I can't. I think if we're not going to rate him just yet, but I think, yeah, as you said, being one of our sort of best money or value for money signings we've had this summer so far, or this season.
Yeah. Kev? Barkley impressed you?
Yeah, I'm a fan. I was a fan when he played for us before, and I thought he was actually quite harshly treated. I thought that people forgot with how the fact his loan spell didn't end particularly well because he got injured and then he was in and out of the team in that second half of the season. But that first half of the season, that was as good as I've seen Villa in years, other than when Emery came in. I remember that fantastic away win at the Emirates, when we won 3-0 and Grealish was just absolutely brilliant. Watkins got a couple of goals. I just think that in that game, him and Grealish was absolutely taking the mick out of the Arsenal defence. You got a late winner against Southampton, I think, late winner against Leicester. And I just thought he looked like a really good player, and he just lost his way a little bit. And then it was actually really good to see him reinvent himself, not only at Nice, but then at Luton, where he was knocking back on the door of the England squad quite rightly. He's only just turned 31, and obviously he's not played tons of games because he's had a few injuries. So I think still think he's got a few years left in the tank. And he's physical, he's strong, he's obviously he's over 6 foot tall. He's clearly got an eye for goal because he's already scored as many goals this season for us than he did in the entirety of his loan spell season. He's got 3 already. And he has popped up with some quite important goals, but he's not had probably as many starts as he would have liked. But I think he's played more than maybe some people thought he would for a number of reasons, injuries, form, whatever you want to call it. I just think he's the kind of player that is absolutely invaluable. He's got that level of experience. He's won trophies. He's played for some big clubs. And when you need a calm head to come on and it's a bit of a cliche, but put the foot on the ball and retain possession. And he's done that quite a few times this season. And I don't think you're wrong with that, Richard. I think you'd say he's been the most influential signing. Maybe one people didn't think would be, but yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Martin, I'll come to you in a sec. Just a few comments. Villa Boy F says Barkley and Tielemans is the cheapest and best buys by far. Adamski says Barkley is a good all-round squad player. And Adam says, Dan, think back post game in Leipzig, numerous beers and repeating, ain't nobody like Ross Barkley. He's not going to do a rendition tonight.
No. That's saved for alcohol influence only.
Perkins said, when Barkley comes on, he seems to do a really good job of calming the play and helping regain control if it's slipping. So yeah, I mean, you can kick us off with the grades on Ross Barkley, Martin, but your thoughts on him as well before you do that in what he's brought to Villa so far.
I think coming into Villa, I think Ross Barkley as a whole, I think he's got a humbling experience now before he came. He was obviously at Everton, made a big move to Chelsea, and probably thought that was it. He's made it. That this is it. He's going to be a big time player. He's going to play for England in the World Cup. He's going to do all these great things. And I think when things didn't go his way, he probably had obviously this attitude problem through the toys and the pram. All these sort of things were happening, came on loan to us. Obviously in our second season back into the Premier League, and probably didn't really want to be there, but he was flying because he probably wanted to prove a point as well that he could still play for one of the big teams. And then when his contract expired, he didn't really get anywhere. He got Nice, and everyone thought, well, that's a bit of an odd transfer. And he did well there. Went to Luton, and obviously played out of his skin and showed that, right, I've got maturity now. I've been humbled. Obviously, this superstardom, of course, probably got to his head, and now he just wants to concentrate on his football. And ever since coming to Aston Villa, and obviously, it was this subject of which Ross Barkley you're going to get. Are you going to get the immature Ross Barkley who's going to throw his toys in the pram, or are we going to get the Ross Barkley who's been humbled in his football career? And of course, the one we got was the one who was humbled in his football career. And he's obviously, I think he's done absolutely exceptional for me. I mean, he's come on, he's controlled the tempo sometimes. He's really been calm in possession. And obviously, he's driven the ball forward in great positions and even nicked himself a goal too to save us from, losing games. And it goes to show that the level of maturity now that he's brought to his football game as well. Yeah. So it's great to see that from a Villa fan perspective. So it's great to see.
8 out of 10.
And I'm going to go an 8.5.
Fair expectations. Kev, Dan, any advance on that?
I'd be if I'm really going to push the boat out, I'd go 8.75 for the 86 minute goal against Leipzig. But yeah,
You're making this sound like Deal or No Deal, Dan.
Yeah, I just need a phone call from the bank and say, "Will you take this?" And yeah, I probably would. Yeah, I think he's surpassed quite a few expectations. So yeah, I'd go for let's just settle for an 8.5. Yeah,
cool. Cloudy says solid 7. Go on, Kev.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be that. I'm probably not going to get that excited about it because I don't think any of our summer finals have been unbelievable, and I'd probably give him a 7.5. I think he's been good. I think he's been solid. I think he's been impressive, but I think 7.5 for me.
Cool. Well, yeah, Cloudy says 7. Jason said 8. So we're thereabouts. Now, I'm just going to do one more in terms of this, and I guess probably the most disappointing, Jaden Philogene, and we were very excited for him returning to the club. Young player, yes, we know this, but I'm more on body language, and I've not seen the kind of confidence or the, he's got his sleeves over his arms, and I'm almost worried when players do that when they're on the pitch. Like, it's almost telling the opposition that you're not really that sure about being there, and I want to see him kind of jump out of that and really show what he can do. And Bayern Munich was a performance that shocked everyone and surprised everyone, but he had a specific job to do that he did really well, and it was primarily defensive. Then he played okay against Manchester United. We haven't seen the best of Philogene, and yeah, Kev, what's your thoughts? Because I think it's just really disappointing, because when he played in that pre-season a couple of years ago, it was like, why are we sending this guy out on loan? And then we saw what he did at Hull, and he did so well, and just we're not seeing that at the minute.
Yeah, I'm loath to write anybody off, right? But I'm also going to say what I see, in the words of Roy Walker from Catchphrase, right? So
what's Mr. Chips doing?
Must Mr.
What
Chips.
would you rather have, Mr. Chips on the right than Jaden Philogene?
It's a good guess, but it's not right. That was Louis Walsh? Sorry. I like it. I just don't know if he's got it.
Another Welsh accent.
Yeah, hey, that was definitely Irish. I just don't know if he's
that was
got
definitely
it.
Welsh.
Lisa, we're talking about Jaden Philogene here. Stop disrupting me. I think you make a good point about the body language, and whether that's a confidence thing, whether that's just a sense of it being a bit too much for him. The one thing I'll say about him is I don't think I've seen, other than one cross he put in the other day, a single positive attacking thing he's done all season. I've not remember him taking anybody on. There was a game recently where he did a bit of a jinking run in his own half. Do you remember that? Like, he kind of skipped from the right hand side to the left hand side of the pitch, and then
was it Juventus? Was it?
Might have been Juventus. Yeah, he sort of like jinked across the player.
Or Southampton, maybe Southampton.
Some skills there, but we just haven't seen him go past the player. We haven't seen him get crosses in. We haven't seen him take shots, and that's what he's supposed to do when he's playing in one of the attacking positions. And I just think it's a bit too much for him. And I would look at it and think, depends on what they want to do in January, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went out on loan somewhere. If they need to free up the space or bring a body in or look at wages. I just don't think he's doing anything to complement that team in attacking areas. When people are talking about maybe moving Rodgers at wide or playing Maatsen wide, because he was the replacement for Diaby. I know he's not a replacement for Diaby. The fee that Diaby went for, the caliber of Diaby, but that's the role that he's playing. And right now he's just not, unfortunately, doing anywhere near enough to justify his position in the team.
Yeah, Kevin said Philogene needs a goal. Cloudy says Jaden's been poor by 1 or 2 games. At Hull, he was like Pele on steroids. Now he's a shell of last season. Perkins, Philogene was very good against Bayern. Easily his best game. Other than that, he's been disappointing. Sometimes it's easier playing against Euro opposition. He's a skillful player. I hope he does play how he knows he can. And I think that's the thing, Dan. It's like, just play your natural game. I know it's difficult for wingers because generally they will try and take someone and then they will give the ball away. But the testament of a winger is to keep going and doing it again, because at some point it will come off and we'll score a goal.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I say it's difficult. He's. I'd love to be in his position and taking home however much he's taken home a week, but I think it's difficult, and I know I don't want to go on too much about PSR and what have you, but the man that talks all sense Villa, Gabby Agbonlahor, said on Talk Sport to say, like, we got to the Champions League, we had to sell Luiz and Diaby, two of our sort of most influential or best players at times last year. And this is no disrespect to Ross Barkley or Jaden Philogene, but we brought in Barkley I know we brought in Onana, but Barkley, who was in a relegated Luton team, and Philogene, who was in a Hull City team in the Championship, to sort of play on that right wing. And I just, it's part of me just thinks, and I know Diaby wasn't built like a 6 foot tall, 6 foot wide, but he could go past someone and keep going past someone. Whereas there's times where Philogene, you're like, there was a really interesting part on Monday Night Football last night where Thierry Henry was talking about Arsenal and Man City, about wingers who are one-on-one with their. He was actually talking about the left-hand side, so it can be similar to the right-hand side, but they've got the right or left back in front of them, and they've got open pitch behind them. Some of these wingers, and Jaden Philogene is no slouch, knock the ball past them and take them on. Whereas I think there are times where he wants to try and, I don't know, do a fancy flick round them or whatever, but he's not bebuilt well enough to outmuscle someone on the ball.
Yeah.
And again, I've never been a winger. I will never be a winger. I've certainly not got the physique to be a winger, to knock the ball past anyone and run past them. But there are times where there's so much open space. You're like, go on, test yourself in a foot race against some of these defenders. But yeah, he's just been disappointing. I think there are a couple of games that really stand out. I usually sit in the hole, but for the Palace game, the cup game when we lost 2-1, which was not the best game of the season, but I sat in the Trinity that game, and sort of on the Jaden Philogene was playing on the left wing, and there were times where he were playing a sort of against a weakened Palace team, and he looked like he'd never played football before.
Yeah,
and you're just, you've got a chance there where you're given a start. I know it was the Carabao Cup third round, but there's a chance to show to Emery, I can play, and whether it's against a weakened Palace side or not, but he was woeful going forward. And even it just didn't look. And like you said, he comes on with his sleeves over his hands, like he's like he sort of doesn't really want to be there. And you're like, go on. And it's like sometimes these kids on park pitches, they look like they don't want to be there because they look like they're freezing cold. And you just like, I don't know, just roll your sleeves up and just give it a go rather than trying all your fancy flicks that, again, no disrespect to Rotherham, but that might have worked for Hull City against Rotherham. You're playing Champions League and trying to compete in Europe in the Premier League. So, yeah, it's just been disappointed for me, really.
I'm just going to add to this as well. Like, it sounds a bit crazy to talk about him having his sleeves over his hands and looking like he doesn't fancy it. But I say to my lad in his team, like, you know, he's under 11s. You turn up to a game, and particularly when the weather's a bit grim, you know, it's a bit cold, a bit wet. Even when I play like 7-8 aside now, I know that because I'm a bit like tapped here, you know, and I have like cold showers and stuff like that. That if it's a bit chilly, like I'm just there in shorts and t-shirt, everyone else has got all the snoods on and the joggers, and I think I'm already one that up psychologically because I'm here studying now, going, let's go. And I just think that in this level of football, this is the elite level of football. If you turn up on the pitch looking a bit overawed by it all, I think that opposition fullback's going to sniff that all
100%. It's the first thing that they're saying. They're like, "Yo, you don't fancy this? I'm going to dominate you. I'm going to smash you." Blah 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 blah. It's all that talk, and it's you know, they know that they're good players. They're not in the Premier League if they're not good players. They know they've got technical ability, so everything is in them. Everything is in the mind.
Absolutely.
Everything. So and it just, like Dan said before, you know, if he is just playing, and I've had a few comments, if he's constantly just playing it safe all the time, then that's not doing anything. That's not getting you anywhere. Like, try and take your fullback on. If you have got space in behind, the worst you'll get is a throw-in or a corner or something. Like, you'll at least give the defender something to think about. If you just run up to him and pass the ball backwards, it's like, well, I might as well just collect my wages and go home, mate, because you're not going to try and take me on. Like,
and to be fair, to quell the, because it's obviously come up again in the comments, you know, should we get Grealish back? That's all Grealish does now anyway.
It's banned. It's banned.
Yeah, well, but I'm just saying that's all. If it was Grealish or someone else like him, all he's doing right now is checking back inside and passing it back to, you know, to the fullback or the midfielder. So, yeah, you want people that are going at, not all the time. And the one thing you'll say is obviously Bailey's been disappointed this season, but the difference between Bailey and Philogene is at least when Bailey like just runs into a defender, at least he's trying to go past him, just not very well at times.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, we know that look at Morgan Rogers, like 4 out of 5 times he's giving the ball away. But you know, 1 time out of 5 it's going to create a chance or we're going to score a goal. So, like you say, at least with Bailey, yeah, he might fall over the ball or get tackled, but at least he's trying. At least at some point it's going to come off.
Also tells that fullback that I don't fancy trying to get past you, so they can set it up differently. They're not expecting it. They can be more aggressive because they don't think. Because let's be clear, you can dive in a bit more if you don't think someone's going to try and nick you past you. So like it's I think he's been hugely disappointing. But this is PSR, isn't it? This is all the financial rules have. I don't think they would have wanted the situation to be.
Like you say, we would have kept Diaby and we'd have kept Louise and built on that. You know, Jaden might have been brought in as the third choice. You know, it's one of them. Cloudy says Jaden has more skill than raw pace, like Diaby did. Kevin said he plays safe. Does Philogene. Perkins said he still thinks Diaby leaving has been our biggest loss. He pushed Bailey last year and we saw Bailey play out of his skin because of it. Unfortunately, no one is doing that this season. Jason says, wonder what he's like in training. What are his tricks? Yeah, I mean, well, he hasn't been brought on in the last... I know he's been injured a bit, but he hasn't been brought on in the last few games. So, Martin, are you thinking 2 out of 10 just for the basis of the Bayern Munich performance?
I'm going to go with a 1, to be honest with you, because he's just not Premier League standard. It's never mind being a standard for Aston Villa. He's just not Premier League standard. There's a huge difference with the Championship and the Premier League. Some players can make that jump, some can't. And I just think Jaden Philogene hasn't been living up to that hype of his performances as a whole. And obviously coming into the Premier League, Champions League as well, he hasn't really been up to it apart from that one game against Bayern Munich. So I just think 1, it's been very, very underwhelming for me.
Harsh, but maybe fair. Guys, we'll move on, but I just want to say we've got nearly 200 in the chat, which is great. Please make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Help us on the road to 5K. Follow Dan at the Villa Home on X. You're also on TikTok as well, aren't you, mate? I know you've been doing a few on TikTok. We're trying to up our TikTok game as well, so make sure you follow Dan there. KTA VFC and at Marto Leonardo as well. And our friends at Football Prizes have a fantastic new competition. Now, the tickets are only 39 pence for this one, but there are just under 4,000 tickets, 3,999 to be exact. But there is an Emi Martinez signed Aston Villa shirt, the world's best goalkeeper signed Aston Villa shirt, and then instant win prizes including hospitality tickets for Villa versus Leicester, £50 football prize gift card, etc., etc. So loads of prizes there. Visit footballprizes.co.uk and search the Aston Villa prize. Just under 2 weeks left. Only 39 pence for your ticket. So you can get multiple tickets as well for that. So visit, as I say, footballprizes.co.uk, search the Aston Villa prize, and you could be in with a chance of winning a signed Emi Martinez, world's #1 goalkeeper, Aston Villa shirt. So we have talked about the signings that we've made. Let's talk about January because that is on the horizon. I'll come to you first, Dan. And Kyle said there, this January transfer window will be interesting. Where do we need to improve in terms of, where are you looking for us to improve for January in terms of position-wise?
I mean that question itself could be a whole podcast on January. So I will not try and speak for an hour on, because no one wants to hear that. But I mean, you go back to we've not really had a settled formation and a settled. So it's sort of like, well, if we knew we were playing 4-3-3 and it was the right wing or centre back. I mean, we've had so many chops and changes, and was Carlos going to go in the summer? He was sort of imminent about to go to Fulham, then he wasn't. So is Carlos going to go? But then is that going to leave us short at the back? So I mean, if we kept the players that we've got, I think the right back has been an issue area for us this season. And I think we're going to need someone. I think a few have put in the comments the right wing position. Again, there's going to be the people might say we need to go for another sort of number 10 or someone to help Rodgers. But I think if I was to pick two positions, it'd be right back and an out winger to try and push Bailey, really.
Yeah. Right back, centre half, says Kev. Jason said hard to get the right players in January. Michael said it depends on our pockets, also the potential loan market. Stephen says no additions without subtractions. And Adamski says 2 wingers and defenders on the right side. So, Martin, where are you saying we could do with the reinforcements? And we'll come to one or two little options in a second, but position-wise, what are you looking at?
Position-wise, I'm looking out wide. I think that's an area where we really struggled this season. I think there's no real backup to Jacob Ramsey or a player that could probably even progress further than him, And then on the right side as well, there's only really Bailey. And obviously, sometimes you've had to play Matty Cash probably out wide out there as well when he's not naturally that player. So I think the wide areas for me is something that really needs to be targeted because we've great depth in midfield. We've a good bit of depth in the defence. Of course, our goalkeeper depth is actually, you could argue, probably is a lot better with Joe Gauchi being your second choice. The 2 strikers are very good selections. So I think the wide areas for me is an area that needs to be attacked.
Yeah, definitely. Cloudy says right back, winger, centre back to replace Diego. Obviously, that's been talked about, but I think Emery's going to keep him, which is interesting. Jason, I'll come to you, Kev, says might be able to do some strategic swaps, and this is probably where we're going to have to wheel and deal a bit, but you're looking at the likes of Jaden Philogene you mentioned, you're looking at the likes of Emi Buendia, one or two other players who are on the fringes of things, Nedeljkovic even going out on loan, something like that, to maybe free up some space in the squad to bring 1 or 2 names in, whether that be loan or permanent. What are your thoughts on that? Whether 1 or 2 of the fringe players or players coming back to fitness go out.
Yeah, I mean, I'd quite happily swap Diego Carlos for Mo Salah, if that's a possibility. I think
Very strategic.
Yeah, a good strategy. That yeah. Maybe we can tempt him with the rich history we've got. Yeah, very good. Yeah. This is my contingency hoodie, so I'm not going to smell up the good ones anyway. No, I was getting my charger, and then I thought I'm a bit nippy, so I put this on. I look at the January window, and I can have all these exciting thoughts about what we might do, but I honestly don't think we'll do anything because of FFP, and it pains me to say that. If you ask me how I want it to go, sorry to
the thing is, we can do stuff with it. We can buy as many players as we want. It's just about how much you have to then sell or how much you have to bring in before that June the 30th deadline. I did see somewhere that we've already made something like nearly 30 million in terms of the Champions League already, but obviously I don't think you can account for that this season's account. So it's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I want to believe we're going to do something, but I really believe that we were going to do that loads of times, in the last few years. And how many times as a Villa fan, you start with the window thinking, this is going really well. We'll just get it all finished off in the next few weeks, and then nothing happens, and you're refreshing consistently, refreshing X. If there's any rumours, you get all the usual rumours, and then you realise there's no windows being wound down at the training ground at 10:10, saying
no Harry Redknapp turning up.
Harry Redknapp's. I think irrefutably we need a right back. I think absolutely the same. We need a winger, and I think as well we need some kind of number 10 type player. At the moment, it really only is Rodgers, isn't it? Who's playing that role, and I think we need an alternative to Rodgers, where Rodgers can maybe. There's so much pressure on Rodgers right now, and I think a player like João Felix, obviously who we were linked with, who can play central wide. He's got the ability to unlock a defence.
He's on about going back to Benfica. He's not getting first team football.
Yeah, but they've got a squad of 428 players, so
I know.
difficult for anyone. I mean, this window's so crazy. We'll probably get Chukwuemeka and Kellyman back for a couple of players. Like it's mental. But yeah, for me it would be and centre half. I think we need a centre half. We need an upgrade on Carlos. We need an upgrade on Cash, although I don't think that's likely to happen. I think they're probably getting themselves through to summer. I'd like one of these. Like I want Monchi to get his little black book out of all his European players and get him, whether it's a Goncalves or an Alex Bueno or a João Felix, someone who's going to be exciting and attacking and in that sort of creative pocket behind a Watkins and a Duran. And we need someone who's decent on the wings because we've got no good wingers at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we're lacking a bit of pace as well, aren't we?
Yeah, Bailey's been
real pace,
a bit better before he got his injury. But I mean, Dan mentioned it about the Palace game. I've got to say, you were talking obviously about Jaden. I took my kids to that game. I haven't got a season ticket this season. I'm picking and choosing my games. Got to the odd away game, but home games, not many. I was so disappointed with all of our attacking play in that game. These players have been given an opportunity. From a Buendia, I even thought Duran was poor. I just thought the players that played that game were just not great. And wide, we've just not been great. If you think going back a period of time when Bailey was absolutely flying, when Alex Moreno was also flying down the wings, we were really marauding and exciting and getting stuff happening. Ramsey was cutting in from the angles and all sorts of stuff. It was brilliant. And now there's so much pressure on Watkins and Duran because no one else is doing anything, really. I mean, even Tielemans, he's not really stepping up with goals, and he's always been good for goals back in the day. McGinn's not getting many goals like he does for Scotland. The fact is we're talking about Onana and Barkley having 3 each has been, hey, aren't our midfielders getting goals? But, that's probably an over expected goals in XG of those two. I just don't think we're potent enough in attacking areas, and clearly we're pretty porous at the back without Mings and Onana particularly. So there's some holes in this squad, and this is my kind of plea to our financial people. I don't care how you do it, just make it happen. Because take the 6 points if you have to. Just you get enough points to cover it with the wins that you get. We've got this league is wide open. I still think we could win the league.
I knew this was coming. Fans Forum. This happens every Tuesday.
Everybody's crap, aren't they? Everybody's crap this season. Chelsea are overperforming. Liverpool are overperforming, and they will definitely have a bit of a blip. I mean, Chelsea keep this going. They've got a massive chance. When people didn't think they'd finish top 8. So, I mean, everybody's throwing it. Man City don't fancy it. Arsenal don't fancy it. Spurs will beat Bayern Munich 74-0 one week and then lose to the Dog and Duck the week after. It's mental. Okay, maybe not win the league, but we've got Champions League in our hands if we can just pull ourselves together and get some consistency of performances. And if that means we've got to get a couple of players in to get us over the line, I don't want a scenario that takes it back 25 years when we were supposed to get Juninho to win the league and we didn't do it, and then it all petered out. We finished 6th. But we've got an opportunity now, and if we can keep ourselves there or thereabouts, we'll be there or thereabouts.
Steve.
Yeah.
You just beat him tonight.
Just beat him tonight. Then we've got a chance to kick on, but we now need to use our muscle and our ability and flex a little bit. And that's why we've got to beat Monaco and Celtic to get the cash in for those games as well.
Yeah, definitely. Villa fan says, personally, I think buckle yourselves up for a busy January window. I think I read a report yesterday that we're linked with a few cheap Bundesliga players, some defenders and some attackers. So we shall see about that. And a few outgoings too. Read something today. Buendia to Leeds, possibly. Carlos most likely be gone in the summer, but if he goes in January, great. Jason thought that Buendia would come good this year.
Me too.
Adamski doesn't want any outgoings in January if it weakens us further. So, and I'll come to you, Martin, on this one, because Claudia says, dare I say Rashford? Is he getting washed or does he need a new challenge? Could Emery get the best out of him? So, yes, you've got it. You've got them prepared. Marcus Rashford reigniting his career. Brian Mbeumo, could he move in January? Or Fikayo Tomori, could we look to get him into to reinforce the defense? I mean, I'd love Tomori. What are your thoughts, mate? I'd love Mbeumo, but I can't see that. But yeah. talk to us about
Okay,
the
here's what-
potential incomings.
Right, here's what I've gone with Rashford. I'm putting in McTominay as an example. Obviously, with Man United, right, it's a sinking ship from the pitch to the board, everywhere. It's just a sinking ship, and then you say, let's effing go, like Wolverine, like Kevin would say. But,
This
of
Wolverine
course,
chat's good.
yeah, of
I'm having a shave
course,
this too.
yeah. Well,
I
look,
don't even know what I mean. I don't even know
Man
what that means. What does the tangerine talk?
It just because it rhymes, I think.
Yeah, should have said
Yeah.
should have said window lane or trampoline or something.
Well, look, going back to the point, right? But with Man United, they're a sinking ship, and I just think any player that's there is a weight of level of expectation for Man United, and all them players are just not going to live up to it. It doesn't matter who they are. We've seen great players go there. We've seen Pogba go back there and be slated by the fans. We've seen Zlatan Ibrahimovic go there and be slated. Cristiano Ronaldo, probably the best player in their existence, go back there and still be slated. And I think for Marcus Rashford, you could turn around and say he's a fluke player because 2 injuries happened in the Europa League game, and obviously he got his start there and went on this great run of form, and he went on. But you have to remember, he had 3 seasons in the Premier League where he scored 17 goals. And then he's reached double figures, probably 4 to 5 seasons consecutively in the Premier League. It's only in the last 2 years where his form has really dropped significantly because of the way Ten Hag was playing. And then, of course, with the new manager now, of course, that has to be addressed. But he was left out, and now he says he wants to leave. And I think it would be great for him if he went into a good environment with a club with a great ambition. And I think that would suit us to the ground to a T because we have Champions League football. It would suit him as well for that. I know people are probably going to go on that the wages are too much. But you have to remember, we cut Coutinho's wage to something serious, because he was on like 400 grand a week at Barcelona and we cut it down to 140. What's to say we can't do the same for Marcus Rashford because we have these other things in place that he can play this great style of football. And then you look at McTominay, who was the scapegoat of Man United. Oh, he's crap, he's not good enough for Man United. He goes to Napoli and he's tearing up Serie A. He's playing like Prime Zidane when he was with Juventus, who won the Ballon d'Or. This is what happens to some of these Manchester United players when they go there. They have this weight of expectation going into them, and they don't live up to it for whatever reason it is, whether it's coming from the board or to the manager, the sporting director, because you've seen Dan Ashford leaving. Who's really making the decisions around Manchester United? So I just think that Marcus Rashford, even if it's not Aston Villa, Marcus Rashford just needs to go to a club where he can feel loved and have a good environment, and of course, a club that has ambition and playing in European football. And I think we're one of them.
Hey, it's a passionate plea. I like it. I've not sold me, but fair enough. I take your argument. Cloudy with a chance UFO says, imagine if Rashford was the answer to our winger problem. Who knows? Who knows indeed. Michael says Rashford's wages is a non-starter. Jason says Rashford for 10 million, but he has too much off the pitch media stuff. Gary said he does need a change for definite. Kevin said wages too much for him. Stephen said he needs to go abroad. So, yeah, I mean, it's a bit mixed. Villa fan said he would sign Rashford if he changes his personality. He would accept a wage cut and performs each week, and I mean every season. So just not asking too much there, but, we'll see. Just a complete personality transplant. Kev, I mean, Mbeumo's, I don't think it's a realistic one. I think, it'll be the summer, and I think some big, I'm not saying Villa aren't a big club, but I'm talking big clubs will be in for Mbeumo. Tomori's an interesting one, though. I think I would like to see him come back into the Premier League, and I think Villa will be a good club for someone like him.
Yeah, I mean, look, the principle of Marcus Rashford, I think Marty's plea, the bits of it I think that were good were the fact about, that he has scored a lot of goals in the past. He's had some good seasons of goals. But the difference between him and McTominay for me is this: is at least McTominay looked like he gave a hoot about what he was doing, and at least McTominay tried, and at least McTominay didn't stand there and let someone just basically walk past him and just think, nah, can't be bothered. And for me, I've seen enough of Marcus Rashford to know that when the chips are down, he clearly don't fancy it. And you want players that are gonna, live in like that any given Sunday speech, live and die for that inch. And I just don't think he's got it. So, yeah, I know the club is all over the shop, but I do think with Ratcliffe, involved, and Amarim's a good manager, I do think at some point they will get better. They will crack it. They're already certainly improving in some areas. They had a pretty good win at the weekend, although one swallow doesn't make a summer. But I just think you look at him and think, it's that promise of what he could be when he's on one of his good days. But I just don't think he's the right kind of caliber for us. I mean, I would rather have him Mbeumo or Wissa.
Oh, 100%. And Mbeumo's brilliant.
Yeah, but than Rashford, I think there's a ton of players in the league that play for lesser teams that I'd rather have than Rashford. I wouldn't even care if his wages were $1,000 a week. I just don't think he's the right kind of character that I'd want at Villa Park. Tomori, yeah, I think Tomori's good. I think Tomori would be a decent player. I don't even really know about the obvious options. I always thought Walker Peters would be good for the right back. But
me too. He's not really been good this. I like James Justin at Leicester. I really like him. I would get him all day. I don't know why no one's gone in for him. I know he's had a few injuries and stuff, but I would go for him straight away. Dan, we've not talking these three players, but more players who have been Villa players that have been impressing out on loan. And that is Louis Barry, who is absolutely smashing it in League One, talking about Derby County, Middlesbrough in the Championship to go in January. And then Kane Kessler-Hayden, who started to really show his worth at Preston in the Championship already. Nedeljkovic isn't getting a run out at Villa. So is there an opportunity for Sir Kessler-Hayden to come in and be the backup right back and even Louis Barry to come in and make an impact at Villa? What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny because they're two players in positions where you're like, well, actually, where we're asking for sort of more strength in depth or more numbers in the window, and you're like, well, there's already a right back who knows the club, who's out on loan for the club, who's playing or impressing in the Championship. But I mean, with Barry, I've just fear he's going to be one of these players that he's. I know he went out to Barca and West Brom, but anyways, he came through the academy and he's gone out on a few loans. I just think because of his stature, in terms of he's not a big lad. I know the same with Buendia, but Buendia, again, I keep saying on his day, but Buendia he's actually quite strong on the ball, and I think they're two very different players. I think if we could play 12 rather than 11 players, you'd go right. Well, you can play. We'll chuck you on as a Watkins +1, and you can also run around like a headless chicken because he's proved in the is he Stockport League One, aren't they? He's what is he top scorer in the English leagues or something?
I don't know if he is anymore, but he was for a week or two. He's got 15 goals, I think.
Yeah. So the kid clearly knows where the back of the net is, but again, you do have to say League One, trying to fight in Europe. It's one of those where you're like, well, he's scoring goals, let's have him back, and then he can't hit a barn door in 6 months, and you're like, well, why do we do that? So I just fear he might be one of these players that will recall him, and then he'll go out in the Championship, and he may well do what sort of Archie did at Preston, and he'll go and score in the second half of the season 10, 12 goals for someone in the Championship, and then again you're like, well, we'll recall him, we'll sign him on another 3-year deal, and then we'll send him out alone again. So I just fear if he was 6'1" or 6'2", you might think actually he could be another third option up top, but I think because of his size and the defenders that are in the Premier League now, I just think unless you're going to be able to play him behind all the time, is he going to be that option? I mean, Kessler-Hayden again, good. He obviously a young lad, but if Nedeljkovic isn't getting in, I just wonder. I don't watch lots of Preston at all, but you just think if Nedeljkovic isn't getting in, is he really going to recall Kessler-Hayden to want to maybe sit on the bench? But again, he's playing well, and I think if he can keep playing well, I think there is a gap there. But again, I suppose like everything, it depends what we do in January, depends where we finish this season, depends if we can recruit again, because you finish in the top 5 again. It looks like we may get the 5th spot with the way the English teams are doing. If we do manage to get into that top 5, again, I think they'll be looking in a completely different bracket.
Yeah, you're getting different players, aren't you?
Championship players.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I know football's always a game of ifs, buts, and maybes, but it's good to see it there. They are impressing on loan, because that's what you want. You want opposition teams to go, oh, that right back's from Villa, he must be half decent, and then they're playing well. You don't want them to sort of be performing and people going, Christ, you can see why Villa have let him out on loan, because he's absolutely tosh. But I think we'll see Kessler Hayden stay at Preston, and I think Barry will recall him but send him out in the Championship, I think.
Yeah. A few people saying that he's like Gary saying he's no worse than Buendia, but Cloudy said he'd get bullied and schooled, unfortunately. I think if you can get a bit more meat on the bones, he reminds me a bit of an Anthony Gordon type player. Like, he's got pace. And I think when you talked about the sort of running behind players into space and then being ruthless and taking a shot, that Jaden Philogene isn't doing, I think Louis Barry does that. And I don't think he cares what level he's at. I think he does that. Like, right, I'll beat a man and I'll try and score a goal. Like, I think he's got that sort of cockiness about him, or that arrogance about him that you need. Whereas, say, Jaden Philogene, all his body language tells you that he doesn't really have the confidence that he's going to be able to do anything. So I think half the battle with Louis Barry is done. Like you said, though, it's about, has he got that physical ability to get past that player to be able to do it. Now, you could argue that League One is more physical than the Premier League in terms of tackles and stuff, but at the key moments it probably isn't. But yeah, it's an interesting one to kind of review. Kev, any comments on that? Any thoughts on that just before we sort of wrap up the show with a couple of other small points?
No, I largely agree, really. I do like Barry as a player, and I think he's got something special, and he's clearly got an eye for goal. But I think the point stands that, so does Archer. There's plenty of players over the years that have been probably not good enough for the Prem, but too good for the Championship. Cameron Jerome was always a great example of that, wasn't he? Maybe someone even like a Jordan Rhodes or Ross McCormack, who used to smash goals in for fun in the Championship, but, either didn't get the chance in terms of Rhodes, I don't think, in the Premier League, or McCormack didn't do much in it. So I don't know whether we'll be that, but then to say one thing, you never know how he's going to get on. And there's plenty of players over the years and look at our team, from an Ollie Watkins to a Matty Cash to an Emi Martinez. Was he ever going to be good enough to make it, in the Premier League? And at late 20s, 27, 28, he got his chance, didn't he, for Arsenal? So you never know. And I do think he's only 21, still only 21. I know that's old enough to be making an impact now, but you can't fault the impact that he's made. But likely is he'll go to maybe a promotion chasing Championship team to see if he can do it. Kessler, I've seen some great glimpses from him in the past, but I'm not convinced he is the one. So nothing to add to that. Oh, so I got one thing to add. Dan, I'm disappointed you didn't get the memo about watching all the Preston matches beforehand. Didn't Richie said it? Supposed to watch. We're Unai Emery inspired on this channel. We watch 44 hours of footage of
every lone game. Yeah,
any team that might be mentioned on the podcast. I don't work anymore now. I just watch footage of matches. No, it's all right. We don't expect. I haven't seen a minute of a Preston football this season. To be fair, not a minute.
I'll put that sort of work sort of clause to my employer and see if they'll pay me the same to do.
Yeah, so you say you're going to be on the Villa Park podcast now, so you need to
watch the last 11 Preston games. Yeah, and also it's not watching the game; it's only watching the fan cam of watching. That when Sky used to do it, we could watch one player just following Kessler Hayden around the pitch. Anyway,
extensive notes.
We move on.
Just to finish up, and we've still got over 200 in the chat, which is incredible. And I know it's getting late, so please do hit that like button if you haven't already on YouTube. It really does help us grow the channel and expand our reach. Hit that subscribe button if you're new as well. It's all completely free. If you want to become a member as well, you can do. It's just $1.99 a month, and we've got a prize for our members coming up soon for a set of those 24-25 season playing cards designed by Matty723. And follow us on all of our socials as well. Dan at the Villa Home, Kevin at KTAVFC, Martin at Marto Leonardo, and me at Sudrich or at Villa Park Pod. So, yeah, just to finish up, we've got a big Christmas ahead, boys. We've got Man City at home today, Newcastle away, which we probably might as well forfeit right now, but Newcastle away on Boxing Day, Brighton at home on the Monday the 30th, and then is it Leicester at home after that, I think.
Yeah.
Big 4 games to come over the Christmas period. Dan, what are your thoughts in terms of, Villa getting some consistency? I mean, if we win against Man City, that would be 4 wins or 3 wins from the last 4. So 4 wins from the last 5 in all competitions, 3 wins from the last 4 in the Premier League. So could that be classed as consistency, or do you think we need some more games to sort of increase that sample size?
I mean, there's so many things about this City game on Saturday that I've seen that it would be so Villa to give Jack Grealish his first goal in 46 games. It would be so Villa to do X and do Y, and it's just sort of. I mean, yeah, as you say, actually, if you look at it 4 from 5, given where we were 4 weeks ago when it was all doom and gloom, and then we win 2 in a week, and then you're like, well, actually, we're 5th or 6th, and I think we're 6th now. But I looked at the table earlier, and it is still so tight. I think Forest are 4 points ahead of us, but then from where we are, it's sort of you lose. If we lose at the weekend, and I don't think it, because of the fixtures, everyone can win below us. But we could go from 6th to 13th because all the teams below us win. So it's as I think Kevin, maybe Mark said earlier, it's so tight because no one's actually being consistent. So I'd love to take a win at the weekend, but there's just so many things where you're sort of seeing these things that City have won 1 in 11, and their last run is like lost, draw, lost. Welcome to the chat, Aston Villa Football Club. So it's sort of I think so many people have watched Villa for so many years. I think if we turn up, like you could say, to any game, we can get a result. But it's just I don't know. I've watched Villa for so many years where you just like. It wouldn't surprise me if City turned up against us on Saturday lunchtime and everyone's gone, nope, City are back. It's Haaland's back. Grealish played out of his skin. So yeah, I mean, if we could get a win on Saturday, that at least you head into sort of that busy sort of Boxing Day, New Year period with okay, we'll beat City, but obviously we go. Fixture after that, we go to somewhere that we've got a great record and have won absolutely nothing in 20 something years. So thanks Premier League. Let's send you to one of your furthest away games at the ground that you don't do very well at on Boxing Day. So yeah, I think it's a tough run, but I was thinking Brighton will be tough, and then I flicked on the sort of live score the other day and saw they were 3-0 down to Palace at home. So it's sort of I mean, I've got a guy at work who does a lot of the football predictions, and he's like, "Oh, I can't get any of these right," and I don't. I mean, it's so hard to predict unless you're going to predict, I don't know, X number of goals in a game or both teams to score. I wouldn't want to be doing tenfold accumulates in the Premier League this year because you just be handing money to these betting companies because you can't predict anything. So, yeah, give me 3 wins and 9 points, absolutely, but. Is it going to happen? Well, who knows?
Seta Stain said, why shouldn't we beat City? We should have beaten Forest. And Cloudy says, season defining this Christmas and New Year period. Martin, it's certainly season defining, isn't it? These 3-4 games. I mean, every team will be saying the same thing, but it is truly season defining.
Absolutely. If we get couple of wins under the belt and you're talking about sitting in 4th, maybe potentially 3rd place depending on other results in the league, and it's going to be hard for me as well because I'm going to be watching them at donkey's hours in the morning when I go to Australia for the month, so it's going to be some serious dedication to take in the sun, by the beach, at the pool, watching the game. You know, like, sorry to tell you all this, but honestly, no. Like, I remember when I used to live in Australia, watching games at like 2, 4 o'clock in the morning, absolutely ridiculous times. So this is what's really going to happen to me. But in saying that, I just think that it is really season defining, and if we get these wins under our belt, the objective will change. You know, maybe the morale will change. It'll give us a boost to say, right, lads, we've got ourselves together. We're here now. We're sitting in fourth, and let's keep it and go higher. Let's take advantage of everyone else being, inconsistent in the league, and let us have a bit of a consistent run.
Yeah, absolutely. Debbie said one of us is in for a change of luck. Let it be Villa for a change. Kev, bit of positivity. These 4 games over Christmas and New Year period, 12 points, isn't it, mate?
We're going to lose them all. Emery will be out by first week of January when West Ham beat us, and then probably McLeish should be back in just for an interim period. We'll get relegated next season. Blues will go past. No, sorry, I went into a spiral there.
All right, Kev.
Yeah, it's so mental at the moment. Dan summed it up perfectly. Like you wouldn't want to do a 1-team accumulate. You wouldn't want to do a half of a match accumulator on one team. You know, Man City at home or Liverpool at home. You never know what's going to happen this season. We could easily lose all 3 of these games heavily, and we could easily win them all by a couple of goals because the season's crazy. Newcastle have had some weird results. Brighton have had some weird results. Man City have definitely had some weird results. But if you look at the league table, we're 2 points off City right now. Amazingly, we are 2 points ahead of Newcastle, and we are 1 point ahead of Brighton. So we are really, if you look at the form of us in Man City, probably the best team on form out of all 4 of those teams. If you go back a bit further, sorry, Karen.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, if you'd have said the 17th of December that we'd be 2 points behind City, obviously forget everything else. But if you'd have said at the start of the season, 17th of December, you're 2 points behind City, you're like, Christ, we're going to absolutely storm this league. But actually,
100%.
And then you say City lose 8 out of 11. But yeah, sorry, Kev, sorry.
No, it's all right. There was a point where we lost like 5 or 6 in a row. They did the same, and we'd absolutely replicated their performances. I think there's been something like some kind of mystical stuff going on. Like there's a jinx being put on both Villa and City because every time we lose, they lose. So like there's going to be some sort of like psychic stuff going on at the weekend when they play each other. Well, this is absolutely season defining, but this is where they need to put on their big boy pants now. You know, Man City are on the ropes. Can we put a performance in? Newcastle have struggled this season. Can we go to St James's Park and put a bit of fight in there? Let's get Kamara and Onana next to each other in that midfield. Let's get Tyrone Mings in defence, and let's have it. And then Brighton, anything can happen. Knowing Villa, what will happen is we'll beat all 3 of those and we'll lose to Leicester. Probably.
I'll take that though. I would take that. 9 points over Christmas.
100%. Don't forget the 15 home wins in a row. They're nearly losing to Sheffield United. Look, if you look at those games, I think if you could get, you'd probably take 7 points now, wouldn't you? Rip your arm off
7-8 points. Yeah,
you would. But I think all of them are winnable games. All of them are. We just got to, but we need to show our best version. It's quite simple football, isn't it? When you talk about it, don't let balls in your own net and score in the opposition's net. But we need to tighten up at the back, and we need to be a bit more potent in attack. I know it sounds quite simple, but if we can just sort that out, then there's no reason why we can't go on a bit of run. And this season could still be absolutely magnificent. We're still in the FA Cup. We're absolutely still in the Champions League and looking like we're going to qualify in the top 8. And we're still fighting for this Champions League spots. And I tell you what, they've got to go to Middlesbrough. And I would love it. I would love it if we finish in those positions, even if it's top 5. I'd love it.
Absolutely. And yes, Cloudy, do it for me because I've got to suffer all those fat shirtless Geordies giving it large. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I can't do it for another year. Right, boys.
I was going to say, can we all just after the podcast, can everybody watching as well, can just take a minute silence when the podcast finishes for Martin having to deal with the horrendous conditions over in Australia for a month?
Yeah, exactly.
Martin, there are some evening games as well you can watch. So you get up at 7, 8 in the morning, you'll be able to watch a couple of the Champions League games and the FA Cup games and stuff. So yeah, enjoy that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'll sit by the pool and watch it. Yeah, no problem.
You enjoy, mate. You enjoy. Don't get sunburnt.
No.
Right, lads, we'll call it a night there. Thank you very, very much for a great fans forum. Always good fun. And I think we've covered a lot. Thank you, everyone, for your comments as well. Sorry if we haven't got through all of them. Dan, thank you so much for coming on. Your first debut on Villa Park podcast and on the fans forum. How have you found it, mate? Have we looked after you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. It was it's always nice to mull over the or chew over the on the fat, and there's plenty to chew on at the moment, that's for sure. But thanks for having me on. It was always good to have a chat.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. And follow Dan, as you say, at the Villa Home that's on X. And what is it the same on TikTok as well and Instagram?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's certainly on one of them. The TikTok's a bit elongated, but I'll put it on the Twitter anyway.
Brill. Top man. And Kev Martin, thank you very much. We will be back later this week for our match preview for Manchester City. Also gonna get Charlie back on the show, aka AVFC Academy or Academy AVFC, sorry. Talk about Villa under 21s beating Blackpool on penalties. Si was giving Brucey some abuse, I'm sure. And then also talk about them getting through in the Champions League as well. So some really, really good stuff to talk with Charlie about. So have a look out for that. Make sure you look out for that one. Make sure you catch our Talking Tactics with Gareth. Gareth was back this week as well, reflecting on the Nottingham Forest game. So loads of stuff on the channel. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We want to hit 5K before Christmas if we can. So please do like, subscribe. Thank you all for watching. And as always, remember, we all follow the Villa.